Greetings, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to this latest edition of Tales from Outer Space. And as always, I hope that you enjoy. Someone to Love, written by Space Paladin 15. It was difficult to get hired in a technological sector. Many of us devoted our lives to the profession, hoping to rise up the ranks of cybernetic implants giant StarTech one day. Fame, fortune, power. A StarTech executive could have all of it. But with applicants from across the galaxy and from all walks of life, you had to stand out from the crowd to get selected. I was determined to succeed at all costs. My acceptance into the most prestigious university in our sector was one of the proudest moments of my life. My commitment and enthusiasm did not wane despite the grueling workload. The stress would not break me. I spent hours poring over textbooks and pulled many stimulant-fueled all-nighters to perfect my coding. A constant cloud of exhaustion hovering over me. But I knew that the payoff would be worth it in the end. Thanks to my dedication, I aced my final exams and graduated as valedictorian of my class. I couldn't submit my application to StarTech fast enough. Hiring me had to be a no-brainer for them, I assured myself. After all, my scores were off the charts in every field. Sure enough, StarTech was impressed by my application and hired me on the spot. Now that I was in the door, I just had to keep on grinding until I made it to the top. I was going to be someone, someday. Curiosity made me delve into who my rival would be. I was confident in my own abilities. I just wanted to know who I was up against. You see, StarTech only hires 2 individuals from each class. The 2 that they believe will be the best fit for the company. And I was rather surprised to see the other hire was a Terran. Dylan Anderson was the first human graduate from any top school in the galaxy. Against all odds, he had ranked amongst the top 10% of his class. An impressive feat. Earth had only achieved FTL a few cycles ago, and was still pretty new to the interstellar scene. According to our assessment, the average human did not have a strong work drive. It was their custom to have typical shifts around 9 to 10 hours, and to have numerous off days, and vacation days, their phrase, as well. Competing against such a lazy species would make my life much easier. But I wondered why. Knowing this, StarTech had chosen Dylan, especially when they'd have to abide by the Terran labor laws within human employees as per Federation's treaty with Earth. My first month at the company was in the books, and I think I had already made an excellent impression on the brass. I'd barely slept or left the office since they gave me my first assignment. It was a painfully slow process, sorting through thousands of lines of code, but I'd managed to complete the task a week before the due date. If I could keep working at this pace, I would be promoted in no time. The bosses assured me. Dylan, however, was not such a standout employee. He seemed to be doing the absolute bare minimum to keep his job, despite having double the amount of time than I did and a shorter task to complete. He only submitted his work 3 minutes before the deadline. Near the end, the code was sloppy and riddled with errors. The human had been more than happy to try and socialize with his fellow employees, while we were all supposed to be working. Most people tried to brush him off, but a few seemed to indulge his pointless conversations. I ignored him the one time that he made his way over to my cubicle. Was he trying to sabotage the rest of us to get ahead? Either way, I was not going to let him distract me from my work. I overheard bits and pieces of his chatter despite my best efforts to ignore him. Dylan loved to complain about working, often saying that he could not wait to go home. He talked about his girlfriend and what sort of future they might have together. He asked others about their personal lives as well. Who cared for any of that? We were here to work, not make friends. Honestly, I would be surprised if the human made it a year with StarTech. The Employee of the Year award rested proudly on my desk, my new, spacious desk in a private office. I'd been promoted to overseer, or better yet, a small ceremony had been held to give me the award. A smile had stretched across my face as the StarTech CEO called me an exemplary coder and presented me with the plaque. The employees watching stared on with jealousy, as expected. Well, all except one. That foolish human had applauded me, as though he was actually happy for me. I was baffled by his behavior. Did he not understand that we were rivals? It was as though work was some sort of game to him. Dylan had somehow lasted 5 years with the company now. He wasn't actively harming the company, though a bit of human laziness had started to rub off on the other employees. A few disgruntled coders were asking for less hours for their days off with pay. Still, with no clear-cut reason to let your human go, firing him would risk a species discrimination lawsuit. A knock on the door snapped me out of my thoughts. "Sir, here are the files you requested." A worker set a few papers down on my desk and exited. Now that I had clearance to review employee information, I thought I'd look into Dylan's history. After flipping through his background and transcripts, I found the hiring team's comments on the last page. Humans are known to score highly in sociability, which we believe may offset their lowered productivity. Dylan is intelligent enough to keep up with the demands of our work. It is our recommendation to hire him, understanding that his contributions will be primarily in a support role. Dylan had arrived at that time, and I told him to come in. I decided the best way to get to the bottom of this was to ask him in person. He seemed a bit nervous as he was seated across from me. "Why did you applaud me at the awards ceremony?" I asked, cutting right to the chase. "We are competitors." "Competitors?" he echoed. "We all work together for the same goal. We're on the same team. Why wouldn't I cheer you on?" I stared at him, dumbfounded. He seemed so genuine in what he had just said, but it was hard to believe that he was serious. Dylan shifted awkwardly in his seat. By the way, I was meaning to ask you, can I get an extension on my deadline? It's a holiday weekend back on Earth, and I want to spend it with my family." Forcing down a sigh of exasperation, I nodded. Humans had their priorities all wrong, putting family over success. This is why I was going places, and Dylan was not. 15 years working at StarTech had vanished in the blink of an eye. I was now the head of marketing and second in command in the entire company. Some days I wasn't sure how I kept going, but I knew I wanted this with every fiber of my being. The energy of youth had left my blood some time ago. Still, I spent most of my waking moments glued to a holoscreen. I was so close to being in charge of the most profitable company in the galaxy. It was just one more step up the ladder to achieve the greatness that I'd always dreamed of. I just had to keep going a little while longer. If I stopped now, someone younger and faster would pass me. Not that many younger employees shared my work ethic anymore. Demands for vacation days and fewer working hours became more and more vocal over the years, as much of our staff was swayed by the human policies. We thought about firing Dylan, but when word got out, low-level coders threatened to walk out. The human was too popular. We finally gave in to the requests, and a few months ago, deciding that it was the only way to stop the protests from escalating further. Dylan would walk around the office a few times a day, making the rounds to chat with others. He was usually greeted with enthusiasm, and many questions were thrown his way about his wife and son. He also often hosted events and gatherings outside of work. For some reason, he made it a point of personally inviting me to each of them. I always rejected them, of course. I did not have the time for such silly affairs, but the look in his eyes each time I turned him down stuck with me. It was as though he felt sorry for me. Why would he pity me? I was racking up wealth beyond what he could make in a lifetime, and I presided over a great many people. My eyes burned from staring at the screen too long as the human stepped into my office once again. I felt strangely numb, as if I were acting on autopilot. Dylan asked me to attend a dinner party at his house, and I became dimly aware that somewhere in my mind, I wanted to go. But a firm rejection was all that came out of my mouth. I had work to do. Fame, fortune, power, all of it was in my grasp now. With my abundance of wealth, I purchased a luxurious space station residence and an extravagant shuttle. I was the face of StarTech, the guy who appeared in all the talk shows, gave speeches at schools, and consulted with stellar leaders. It was the life I had dreamed of about as a kid, but neither my station nor my positions brought me happiness. The better part of my life had slipped through my fingers, and I'd not even noticed it pass me by. Where had all the time gone? What had all of my effort been for? I was achingly lonely, and there was nothing I could do about it. I tried to keep myself working, mainly because it was all I knew how to do. Dylan entered my office one day as I was half-heartedly typing away, clearing his throat to get my attention. Time had taken its toll on the human, turning his hair grey and etching wrinkles on his forehead. But his eyes shone as brightly as they did decades ago, when he was fresh hires out of college. He had only meager savings to his name and had stayed in the same position for most of his life. I wondered, not for the first time, why he was so happy. Dylan took a deep breath. I wanted to talk to you, boss. I'm going to retire at the end of the year. It's been an honor. Thank you for everything. I nodded, wondering why I felt a tinge of sadness at the news. Very well. Make sure you fill out the proper form and give sufficient notice to your supervisors. Dylan had stopped inviting me to social outings long ago. I suppose he had finally tired of receiving the same flat response to each of his offers. But he must have seen something in my eyes at that moment that encouraged him to try one last time. A group of us from the office are meeting our families at the park at lunch break. Why don't you come? He asked. Well, I suppose I could find a bit of time. Just this once, I answered. A smile crossed his face. Great! I'll see you there. The park was a short walk away from the building, and I second-guessed myself as I strolled across the grassy knoll. I spotted Dylan standing hand in hand with an aged woman, smiling as they watched two young children play by the fountain. The kids splashed around in the water and chased each other without a care in the world. That strange, sad feeling was there again, tingling in my chest. I hesitated before walking over to the human couple. Those are cute kids. He laughed. Thank you, they are my granddaughters. I've always thought that there's more to life than work. The people you care about are what really matters. Once I had thought that Dylan had his priorities backwards, placing family above work. But now, I thought that maybe he had it right all along. All I've ever done is work. What is there to do now? I asked. Find someone to love before it's too late. End of story. The algorithm reckons you should be watching this video next, and I recommend that you should be always watching my video. So, click with energy! And yes, clicking that does help the channel. Thank you very much. I just want to give a quick thanks to the Tier 5 patrons and channel members. Alithia, Barky, Fudic Yol, Cam Maxwell, Caspar Onholtz, White Van 420, Lord Asrakal, Arcalian, and Oakfield.